panel. I appreciate sharing this platform with you guys. And you know, as we know that the global economy is facing this rapid plunge into uncharted waters, and it's almost like never before seen business. You know, this precipitous descent and near lockdown of major global economies and cities is almost unheard of, especially in my generation. You know, the personal, social, and economic impact of COVID is unlike anything the world has ever seen in the last 75 years. Many people, they are comparing it to the flu, the big flu that happened, you know, 75 years ago. So it's basically uncharted waters. And especially for the dental industry, many dentists are so focused on the clinical impact of dentistry that they actually forget to wear the hat of a CEO and see the business as it is, as a business. So we've just completed an international survey with the Straumann Group, and what they've seen in China post-lockdown is that 25% of dental practices are closing, are liquidated, and they are foreseeing the same future, especially for developing countries, if not more severe than 25%. So now more than ever before, it's important for business owners and all stakeholders to consider the various strategies that are available or even aren't yet available for practices, dental practices to pursue. And I'm so fortunate to be on a panel so rife with intelligent people and diversity, especially seeing an oral hygienist here, and then another stakeholder is the supplier. Because I believe it's important for all stakeholders in all aspects of the business to come together and say, what can we do? How can we get through this? And how can we see opportunity? You know, we've seen the dissolvement of big giants in Africa, like the Edcon Group, the South African Airways. So even more, it's got such a big impact on SMEs, you know, small business enterprises. And it almost seems as if governments are trying to initiate this policy choice, which suggests that global leaders should choose between lives versus profit. And I believe that's a false binary. As in any economic system, the lives of the majority of people and population depends directly and indirectly on the economic and social activity. So are you guys still happy? Am I talking too quick? You good? Hi. Can you hear me, Almarie?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay. Yes. You know, so getting to my practice, the industry has differentiated itself over the last years, and we've placed ourselves what we believe is a very sophisticated market competitor. And you know, our practice is aiming to achieve optimal safety and efficacy for all stakeholders, you know, whilst adjusting and manipulating our CapEx, which is the capital expenditure, and also our OpEx, which is the operating strategies to meet these obstacles of this economic crisis. I think that the bottom line, which is the productivity line of our business, highlights a significant concern of uncertainty and volatility, as all selective dental treatments now has taken a step back, not during the lockdown, but also post-lockdown. People are scared to implement normal selective dental protocols. And I believe, and my partner, Gijs de Nakke, he believes that dentistry in the dental environment is already a safe place to be. You know, we've always implemented safety protocols. But as you see, as I've spoken about the Spanish flu, you know, that the Spanish flu, they were actually really concerned about the significant increase in poverty and capital returns was negatively affected by the pandemic. But in contrast to what they predicted, there was that means zero discernible effect on earnings over a period following the pandemic. So what that is suggesting is that perhaps there still is a great future for businesses and dentistry alike, if we just compare to what happened with the post-lockdown of the Spanish flu. And for this reason, I want to come to strategy. Why is strategy important? Like I've mentioned before, you know, I don't look at dentistry just as a clinical procedure, but look at it as a business. I see myself as an executive and work our practices so that there can be a positive bottom line. You know, and having strategy enables us to develop meaningful foresight about viable futures of your business, potential options and choices. And developmental foresight allows for the navigation into the unknown. And that is exactly where we are. We are into the unknown. Having great strategy allows you to personalize and adapt a business model for a competitive advantage. And it also helps you to implement these strategies while taking into account new and developing economic realities. And I think the first thing to start off is to understand that this thing can either consume you or you can conquer it. That is basically your choices. You either eat or you get conquered. And building a strategy, you have to first identify the problem. And obviously the problem is not the COVID initially, but also the significant impact on our business and several business elements. And for that, you need a strategic response to this crisis. And a requirement for each practice, each dental practice, is an additional, more detailed, customized strategy response. So you have to customize it to your situation. And then you have to take into consideration what is impacted. And for the last 2 weeks, I've spent 40 hours customizing our strategy. We've looked at the financial impact, which it has on and substantially reduced our revenue. We've looked at the expenditure on PPE equipment. We've looked at the increased risk for profiles for patients, employees, and the overall practice. We've looked at the human capital, the mental, the physical, and the financial well-being of our team. We've looked at existing processes and the required revisions. We've looked at a systems perspective, the overall responsibility and ethical requirements as a dental service provider. Continue to that, we've applied global perspectives on how the international markets are affected. And then we come back to having a short-term, a mid-term, and a long-term plan, and which is adaptive and changeable. So if I just break down into the three aspects, we spoke about financial impact, people impact, and the repositioning impact. Financially, we started to reduce our capex and our opex. We've made essential financial commitments. That was a requirement. We wanted to be able to pay salaries, to pay all stakeholders. We wanted to meet that. We are driving revenue and profit in all ways that we can, and we are optimally managing the debt as far as we can. That's the financial aspect. Then the people aspect, you have to understand that you need to ensure patient safety and staff. Patients should feel safe when they come to you. And then the repositioning aspect thereof was, we are now trying to identify new market segments, maximize leverage on our existing practices, and realize with new opportunities. And I know this sounds like a lot of big words, but in this lockdown, actually started building affiliation smaller practices. So there are many smaller practices around us that run on a medical aid practice, and I've actually captured a lot of data over the last 6 months. There's a lot of patients that don't want to actually come to the practice if they don't have medical aid, and for that reason we started affiliating. So you have to have a response, and around each and every situation. Forget about the pandemic, but just the fact that we're going to do the fourth industrial revolution. You have to have a response to each situation and then a strategy. I believe affecting with one another is so important.
Absolutely. Brian, can I just interject here? I'd like to ask you, will you be willing to collaborate with practices in other towns and cities as well?
Yes. So we've got 3 practices in the major cities, and the plan for me is really to look at affiliations and then also have hub and spoke models, have a centered hub, and then build around not only friendships, but also the affiliations, the cross-linking.
Yes.
I think that's really important.
Oh, yeah.
I think my time is almost up. I just want to say one thing, is that I believe having an oral hygienist as part of your team is one of the biggest moves and strategies that we have. That I can't see any dental practice growing without a full team, and especially an oral hygienist. To me, an oral hygienist is a KPI, key performance indicator. If your oral hygienist is busy, your practice is growing. If you can't measure anything in your practice, if you don't have data, you can't strategize. So I believe that is really important, is build a strategy on what you have, know your numbers, gain data. That's how you build forth. And connect with one another.
Absolutely. Thanks some more, Brian.